Good morning. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live here on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. DB will be joining me shortly. I'm here with Shane Schillerberg at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And it is finally here, ladies and gentlemen. It's game week. It felt like forever, but football's back. We had week 0 football over the weekend, and we will have Nebraska football in less than a week. Saturday coming up here. We'll be getting you ready for it all week, as well as the rest of the college football slate. Can't wait. It's been both a long and short off season, and it's time for football. I know everybody's excited. I know I'm excited. Didn't get off to the greatest start with week 0 for me, as Florida State got beat up a little bit by Georgia Tech. We'll get to that. We'll get to a bunch of stuff throughout the course of the show. But we will also be joined by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald, as we always are on Mondays. And then at 9 o'clock, we'll be joined by Bill Bender from the Sporting News to cover college football as a whole and get his perspective on all sorts of things before the week is over. I know that we had week 0 already, but before the week is over, we will, DB and I will give our college football playoff teams. We'll do all 12 of those, as well as give predictions on what Nebraska's final record will be this season. We'll take your predictions too. 888-638-4876. If you want to let us know, if you want to put it on record, who is going to, or what is going to be Nebraska's final regular season record this year, give us a call. Give us your reasoning. I don't know if you're drinking the Kool-Aid, if you're a little bit more cautious, maybe cautiously optimistic, however you're feeling. Give us a call and let us know. I've been pretty optimistic all year, but we'll give my final prediction here before we get to the kickoff on Saturday against UTEP. It's going to be a great week. We're excited for everything that we've got going on. TK chimes in and says he thinks the game on Saturday had a lot more to do with Georgia Tech than it did to do with Florida State. And I actually vehemently disagree with that. I do think Georgia Tech is better than a lot of people gave them credit for. DB had told you all week that Georgia Tech was going to give Florida State some problems. But here are the things that Florida State just didn't execute on at all. And maybe they still lose the game, maybe they don't. But it was a 3-point game, and they played poorly in 2 of the areas that they needed to be good in and should have been good in based on who they had coming in or coming back. The first one of those is, first and foremost, the offensive line. That's a group that, Shane, we get a second. There you go. Got the camera slipped on. Somebody made a comment on there. Appreciate you giving us a heads up there, Mark. Florida State's offensive line returned, I think, 190 starts. That's an enormous number. Nebraska's somewhere around like 130, I think, with Corcoran, and that's the most in the Big Ten. I believe Florida State, if I remember this correctly, from my little Phil Steele magazine, was at 190 returning starts. Now, obviously, not all of those were the certainly not all of that went the way Florida State wanted it to on Saturday, but Norvell said that he thought this could be their best offensive line. And it certainly did not show that way on Saturday. They were unable to establish anything running the football after the first drive, where they just marched down the field pretty much effortlessly. But the other thing is, I understand part of that is on DJU. We saw this last year with Nebraska, right? When there's no real threat of getting burned by the quarterback, you can really pack it in defensively. That's common sense, right? That's just how football works. But DJU's inability to, until that one drive where he completed a couple fourth down passes, to really complete anything consistently past the sticks, obviously damaged Florida State's ability to run the football. But I also just thought the offensive line got dominated a little bit by Georgia Tech. That's not something that should have happened if Florida State is who they thought they were. And to me, that is a Florida State issue, not a Georgia Tech issue. I think Georgia Tech, again, better than most people gave them credit for, except for my guy DB, who had kind of called this one. But the offensive line play for Florida State was kind of embarrassing considering what they were last year and that everybody's back. On the other side of things, the Florida State defense also should have been a strength and certainly was not. They got shredded up by Georgia Tech, especially on the ground. It was not a great effort by Florida State's defense, especially their defensive line that we thought should or could be pretty good, and it just did not turn out that way whatsoever. TK does bring up a good point. I am a little concerned about Florida State's wide receivers' inability to separate. Did not seem like they were getting much in terms of separation on Georgia Tech's defensive backs, and I don't know what that's going to look like against better teams. That'll be interesting to see. And being totally honest, sometimes I have a hard time separating quarterback play where he's putting the ball where he needs to put the ball placement, versus what the receivers are supposed to be doing when you're not watching all 22, right? That can be a challenging thing to decipher from TV angles. But what we did see was not impressive from DJU, not impressive from the wide receivers, and really from the areas that should have been good for Florida State, the offensive line and the defense, especially the defensive line, really struggled there as well. DB, what's up?
How are we doing?
Oh, we're just dissecting a little Florida State postmortem here.
I'm afraid to touch one of
this one I think is me. Yeah, this one's me. So you can play with whichever ones you want to after that.
Why are these?
Is that you?
Yeah, that's me now.
So that's right. You're on the left side. I'm on the right.
But it hadn't been like that for like 2 months, so I wouldn't have expected the obvious.
For sure.
I mean, why would we do that?
Yeah, I mean, you're just out here trying to do it.
Blind squirrels.
How you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. We're fortunate, man. Like, we were able to get it in and on short notice. And I know not all schools are afforded that luxury, man. So
is that a temperature deal today?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be like 101 or something like that.
Yeah. It's already pretty. I mean, it's thick out there.
It is. You've got a thickness in the air.
It is messy already. But yeah, man, like I'm pretty pumped.
How was practice?
Practice was good. Yeah, especially for what it was. I mean, 5:15, guys are rolling, and it was good.
You guys start on Thursday.
Yes, we do. Thursday night, man.
Home, right?
Yeah, we're at home.
Home against Omaha North.
We get the Vikings in all their glory.
Are you guys ready? We might have a little. We might have stylistically a little Florida State Georgia Tech redo there.
I hope we're better against the run. We better be.
Omaha North is going to try and beat your head in, though, right? I mean, that's basically what Georgia Tech did.
I would imagine. Now, I don't know what Gal gives them at quarterback. I know they're pretty good outside with Jones and O'Neal, and I really like their tight end from a year ago. So I mean, we'll see. But I mean, if it's North, then it's going to be physical, and we're going to have to stop the run. But I don't want to fall asleep on those guys outside the numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, we're well aware of. We got head tapped a couple of times in the past year and a half by Connor O'Neal and those guys. So it's not like. And I remember two years ago, they rolled in with a quarterback that had no starts.
Yeah,
and dealt us fits 3 years ago.
Who was that 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was at Westside. They started a freshman. He ended up going to Burke. And hadn't thrown a varsity pass.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh.
True freshman starting quarterback, you don't get a lot.
Listen, they had a guy, Keyshawn Williams, who did a number on us outside.
Yeah.
Just because we didn't think they were going to get him the ball. So that hopefully, knock on wood, that won't
won't happen again.
That won't happen again. But stopping a run is a thing. You saw it's demoralizing. You saw it when you couldn't.
Oh yeah,
when you can't do it.
If you can't stop the run, it gets in your head in a hurry.
I think that's it's like a slow bleed too.
Yeah.
Right. And you're almost just saying to yourself, oh my gosh, get it over with.
Especially when you know they're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Georgia, I'm telling you though, these guys are good.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how good.
Yeah. I don't know what that turns into in terms of a win-loss.
But I just know that's a miserable opener.
Yeah. Nobody's going to want to play them.
Nope.
That's going to be one of those where you see him on the schedule and you're like, God, I hope we have a bye week after.
I like their run schemes. I like their run game. I think Haynes,
he's a good fit for that, for what they're trying to do.
Isn't he? He's a good back. People forget, man, guy rushed for 1,300 yards last year.
He's a good fit for what they're trying to do. He is. I also thought they did a really good job of not putting him in positions to make mistakes. Because that's been his bugaboo, right?
You're talking about Haynes King?
Yes.
Oh, I was talking about the running back.
Oh, Haynes. Yeah. Sorry, I was talking Haynes King.
Yeah. No, he didn't. So
they didn't put him in spots to make mistakes.
Yeah, he was good. He wasn't as dynamic as he's capable of being.
No, but you kind of wonder. I kind of go back to
maybe they wanted balance too.
Well, I kind of go back to like an Adrian Martinez thing with Nebraska versus what we saw with him at K-State, right? Like Adrian Martinez was capable of being more dynamic than he was at K-State.
Yeah.
But it's a risk-reward thing, right? We saw when he was more dynamic at Nebraska, that also came with the errors.
Yeah, I used to always tell people like dynamic quarterback play can make you lazy as an OC. Mm-hmm. So, he'll get us out of it.
Yeah.
I'll make a play. I mean, you're not saying that, but you definitely are thinking that schematically.
Right.
And they put a lot of pressure on King last year, but I mean, you can't let Jamal Haynes go for 7 a crack either.
No.
And he got the 2 easy scores, but
did you think that was more about Georgia Tech or Florida State?
The game in its entirety? Yeah. That's a good question.
Because I've heard arguments on both sides.
So personally,
because your reaction to it.
Because I thought Georgia Tech was pretty good coming in.
Sure.
I think it had a lot more to do with Georgia Tech.
That's fair.
But I could see, like, if you wanted to make the case, I don't get and maybe you can help me. I don't know.
Sure. I'll do my best.
I don't get the DJU bashing because vertically, he's only going to play the way that you ask him to play.
Sure.
He ends up, I think he only had the 8 incompletions.
Like he had 14 for 22.
2 drops.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he threw for almost 2 bills in the rain, which was more than King threw for.
So what I took away from it wasn't so much about the numbers or what it ended up being. It was
19 to 27.
What it looked like, and basically it felt like an indictment that Mike Norvell didn't trust him.
Yeah, like yards per attempt, maybe.
Yes.
I could understand that.
That's how it felt.
I could see that.
But
that's not on, well, I guess I can't say it's not on him.
Because I take it from like
maybe they
didn't trust.
Maybe they didn't trust him to get vertical
based on what they've seen.
I don't know who you guys are throwing to though.
Well, that's the other problem,
so,
right?
Like,
that's what I was talking about when you came in here.
I don't know about how dynamic those guys are.
Although Benson is supposed to be pretty dynamic, at least vertically, right? Yeah. I don't know what he's supposed to be able to do across the middle or whatever, but he's supposed to be a burner that you can go get the ball to down the field. And I don't even think they had an attempt to him. Mm-hmm. I think their couple of deep shots were on the other side of the field there.
I think the biggest DJU would be the last thing that I would talk about. I think Toafili and Williams got to run the ball better.
Yeah, I thought the offensive line was really bad.
I
thought the offensive and
the inability for those two guys to get going on the ground.
How about the inability?
20 for 70 between the two.
Yeah, it's terrible, especially after the first drive. Like 90% of that's on the first drive.
Yeah. Hey, but how much were you like buckle up after G-Tech's first drive though?
Oh yeah, you knew.
This is hard because this is coach to coach, yeah. But Georgia Tech philosophically, like in schematically, did a number on FSU.
Oh yeah.
I felt like offensively, the way that they handled and counted guys in the box and could dictate guys in the box, FSU didn't really adjust.
They seemed unprepared, is what it felt like. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it. You've done more of these than I have, obviously. I think they got to Ireland on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Which feels really late.
So remember all the consternation when Nebraska when they weren't
like a week early, right?
Yeah, you do, but there has to be man. Yes. But I'm just telling you, it's brutal because you want to stay in your routine as long as possible.
Sure.
And you don't want it disrupted with preparation, but you do have to get acclimated.
Also, like,
to the time of day.
More disruptive to your routine? Going and prepping a whole week in the same place, even if it's an unfamiliar place, or having to leave the country in the middle of prep.
No, I understand.
I mean, I think it's an argument.
As long as you're not doing Guinness tours and all that other type stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. Which, listen, if you want to go like 9 days out, get your tourism stuff in, and then game prep for a full week at the same place, that to me makes more sense. But they look sluggish. I don't know if that's a time change thing or a late arrival thing. You know
what my suggestion would be?
Play better football.
Don't go.
I mean, don't tell that to Coach Rule.
Don't go.
He wants to go overseas.
No.
He wants to go to Mexico. He wants to go to Ireland.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
He wants to see a 200-foot Nebraska football helmet.
Yep. Knock yourself out.
Signs from God.
Like it doesn't surprise me though. He just likes it uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He wants to battle all elements.
Everything grimy.
Yeah. Like just
the grimier he can make a football game, the better.
Life isn't easy. Let's go play football. I can respect that. I just the week zeros in college football.
Oh, they're brutal.
It's tough.
They really are.
It is really tough. I mean, you can ask Montana State,
SMU.
Oh yeah. Hawaii didn't hit the X button until late.
Yeah.
Or R2. I think it's R2 now. For speed burst.
Got the little trigger on the backside of the controller.
But it's tough, and the rest of the country now has the opportunity to take notice.
Well, and I thought it was interesting. None of the favorites ended up covering or coming anywhere close to covering.
Wow, they get shut out.
Yeah, because Florida State was minus 10.5. SMU was minus 25. Yeah. I'm not sure where
Montana State didn't cover.
Montana State was
What was the Hawaii final?
35-14. And they were minus 40.
Hey, and that was like 21-14 going in. Like when I flipped, that was late. This is probably like 110 maybe Saturday.
Yeah.
It was 21-14.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not. The thing that I was most enthralled with in that one was Delaware State's uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about it.
I'm kind of sort of just fascinated by the whole Delaware State thing in general. It's like, is this a real football program?
Yeah. I like the uniforms. It reminded me of like a box of nerds or something. Like the color scheme. I don't know.
Got a lot going on there.
Yeah, it was busy. But it was just it's tough, man. It's hard to be good. It's hard to win.
So let me ask you this, because I've been since Saturday sort of thinking about this in the context of, what type of improvements you can expect. Is this who Georgia Tech really is? Is this who SMU really is? Is this who Florida State really is?
I do think Georgia Tech will play like, I don't know. Florida State has a higher ceiling, but I do think that's exactly who Georgia Tech's going to be. That's who they reminded me of last year, except they were much improved against the run.
So here's the thing that I am wondering, because a lot of times, and I'm sure this is all anecdotal, but a lot of times when you see these, whether it's like Nebraska last year on Thursday night or 2 years ago in week 0 against Northwestern, or you see Florida State LSU in that premier matchup last year, a lot of times some of the flaws that we see in these teams in week 0 or week 1, and we're going, they'll fix that or they'll clean that up or whatever, kind of end up being the story of their season. LSU last year, what was it? Great offense, can't stop anybody.
Terrible defense, yeah.
Nebraska against Minnesota last year. Errors, turnovers, offensive struggles. What did we see the rest of the year?
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska 2 years ago against Northwestern. Mental errors, can't get out of their own way. One thing goes wrong and it avalanches on them, right? It kind of seems like what we see early a lot of times tends to play out throughout the rest of the season. Now, I don't know if that's just
I get the sense, though, Florida State will be able to run the football better.
I would imagine. I don't know how that offensive line can be good last year, bring everybody back, and be bad this year.
Yeah.
That's weird to me.
You talk about it all the time. Just because somebody's coming back doesn't make it a good thing.
Yeah, but they were good last year.
Yeah, I know.
That's the problem.
It's like It's like some young guy, not young guys. It's like incumbents at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of those guys that played early
are going to play again.
May play less this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we saw it with Jaden Doss. When's the last time you heard Jaden Doss's name?
I mean, you could see it with Malachi Coleman.
Sure.
You could see it with a lot of guys. So it's like,
because what did Coach Rule talk about? You had to find guys. You just had to find guys.
I can't believe that's the first time Jaden Doss has come up since spring is when you just said it.
I know. Somebody asked me about him like 2 weeks ago because we were talking about the defensive back room, and I was like, yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a longer-term transition for Jaden than it is sort of an immediate impact deal.
Yeah, there's some guys back there that I just, Sincere, Doss.
It's going to be tough.
Bryce, like it's deep.
Yeah, it's a deep room with a lot of talented young guys. And
especially as the Tarvers and the Charles and those guys get healthy.
Sanders he's not healthy, but the Sanders has been coming up a lot lately too.
It's only so many reps, and now it's game week, so it's hard.
I was like, because you're gonna pare that down now too, right?
Yeah, you have to have been on the radar.
Yeah, you gotta lock in.
Now you gotta get your guys ready.
Speaking on the radar, Caleb Benning was a mention on Saturday. I don't know who talked about him. Coach Rule might be listening to the show. I don't know.
That's funny. All of a sudden, he waits till the very end.
Yep. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube from the Pillar Exterior Stage. DB here with me. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Another thing that kind of...
I almost want to go back to our old cameras.
Yeah? Why is that?
I don't know. I just don't like the optics. Fudge. And Sasha's just rolling her eyes. She's like, man, the heck with that dude. I know.
At least you don't have to worry about it this way. It's just there.
Yeah. So I, of course, couldn't figure out which outlet to plug my battery into.
It's not important.
Well, it only took me 2 different tries. I'm like, I can't even get this right. Can you imagine when there was the whole camera thing?
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
Yeah, kind of sucks.
It's all right, though.
So, do you know I'm not hardwired? Are you hardwired?
I am hardwired.
Should I? Because I'm not.
I mean, probably. Be ideal.
Shoot, I'm hoping for a screen freeze.
Well, that actually won't fix anything because the camera's coming through mine.
Damn it.
So your screen freezing doesn't do anything anymore.
All right.
That was kind of the...
Guess I'll get my... What do you call those things? An adapter?
Dongle?
Yeah, that.
The dongle?
I prefer an adapter, but maybe it's not an adapter.
It's not... dongle's not in your regular vocabulary?
It's kind of a weird word.
You got some strange word affinities, or like word like...
That I don't say?
No, you don't like when I say.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
Like dongle?
Yeah.
Or...
It's weird.
Uruguay?
Stop saying it like that, number one.
I'm trying to pronounce it correctly.
Okay.
We doing all right? We got it?
I couldn't find my hardware.
That's all right. We'll figure it out.
So does that mean I have to go back to turning off my internet?
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works.
Well, I got to stop saying that because speaking of talent show, that's definitely what the kids would say about me. They'd go, fudge, because I do that all the time.
Well, that's what Sauter started doing.
Yeah, he's a jerk too. That's right. I was mad because he actually it was
kind of close.
It sounded just like
it was in the neighborhood.
But he got it from Verzal. He wasn't even being creative.
His impersonation was pretty good though.
Yeah, whatever.
It was pretty close. That's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna switch it up, but I don't say anything else.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Like what? Dang it!
You might have to shoot.
Dang it! Christian Jones has the best impersonation ever.
Really?
He even does. Yeah, he's got my hand gestures down to it.
Does he?
Yeah.
Got the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
No,
I might have to see that.
Well, been around him way too long.
Let's go, baby.
Way too long.
Spent a little too much time together.
He did that guy right there, Southern Vibes Living, did a twice baked smoked shrimp potato.
Yeah.
Oh, he cored it out, made kind of the mashed potato thing. He cut up shrimp, bacon, sour cream, chives, Gouda, restuffed it, smoked some shrimp, put them on top. He served them like, it looked like a drink without the straw. He served them upright. Man, listen. I was like, shoot, I might have to get back into the potato game.
Listen.
Absolutely.
Free booty.
Let's go, baby.
Should always be in the potato game.
Yeah, I don't know about
Big
that.
potato guy.
Man, I saw where your other, my Vice, I saw they brought back, not brought back, but they went to Long John Silver's is going to waffle fries.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been along John Silver's in a minute.
Don't remind me.
I know, it's your spot.
Yep, did a U-turn this weekend. Didn't go. Listen, through the parking lot. It is embarrassing. I'm like, these people are going to think I'm on crack. And it's narrow, too.
Yeah.
Off 108th. So, like, if you change your mind, there's no place to go but through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
I just waved on by.
Hey, see ya.
I was like, yeah, on second thought.
Just got a little lost.
Yeah.
Are you guys going?
I haven't done it yet.
You're about to?
It was really, really close. Well, the thing about it is I have an app, so it popped up and alerted me.
Oh, gotta be careful with those apps.
Yeah.
Might have to delete that one.
I know. That one in Churches, but it's good that Churches is so far from me.
Yeah. Or at least turn the notifications off,
Oh yeah.
That way they don't pop
But I
up
did an
at
auto. I did an auto update, or it did an auto update, and it changed everything. It even changed it went to Google messaging. It looks pretty stupid.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to my own texting.
It's like an iPhone, or that's like an Android problem,
Dude, bubbles popping up and bloop, bloop, bloop. I'm like, oop, this is not what I want.
It's not stuff that happens to me.
So if Andrew was here, he would just Google how to stop it, and then I would just be like, hey, can you get this back?
I'm just gonna tell you, go get an iPhone.
It's not happening. Yeah, it's an interesting. The whole old thing, young thing with Coach Rule's quote. Who were we talking to at media days? And I loved the way that. Oh, it was Bruntz, I think, because it was it was a Thursday, so it was Bruntz, and he talked about how he flipped the roster without flipping it.
Yeah, or I thought it was BC. I think it was BC.
Was it BC?
I think so, because it was on the Wednesday before.
Are you sure?
I think so.
I think it was Bruntz. But it's
one of those Husker 24/7
Well, we'll give it
guys.
the 24/7 credit, but
one of those dudes.
He's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because after that secondary, it's like that second group is all young.
Oh yeah.
After that linebacking core,
all young.
It's all young.
Yeah.
After your older D linemen, it's all young.
I mean, it's even young with some of the starters in there with the D line.
Yeah.
I mean, if MJ
not so much.
Yeah, if MJ's going to start, no, but
and it's cool to watch kind of this team get some.
Same with the offensive line, young guys after the initial group.
So I get the whole we're an old team and we're a young team.
Yeah.
And it's how he did it like that. I'm not sure. Because you ever seen like groups where coaches will say, hey, man, we got a great senior class. And then you look at the junior class, you're like, oh, man, it's not very good. Or you have a really good junior class, and you're like, oh, man, we don't have very good seniors. Or you're like, oh, man, what happened to our sophomore class? Like, that happens a lot.
100%. Part of that has to be a happy accident. Like, I'm sure this is the ideal way for it to work out.
Because they inherited so much?
Yes.
Yeah, but they've changed so much.
But they inherited, not just that they inherited so much, but they inherited guys with a willing mindset. And he's given credit to the kind of the group that was brought in. What do we got? West Side again? Double West Side today? I was just saying.
Yeah.
Like, he's given credit to the group of guys that, like, Mickey Joseph and Scott Frost recruited, and kind of the mindset of those guys, because that's what it is. What we see most of the time.
Yeah, you definitely don't have guys like Singleton, right?
No. I mean, the entire offensive line, those are pretty much all Frost or Joseph guys. A good chunk of the defensive line, good chunk of the linebackers. The ability for those guys to be willing to buy into something new is the thing that's unusual here that you don't normally see. Normally, those guys either transfer out or they're kind of, malcontents or whatever, and they don't end up being important to the team, whether they leave or just aren't in a position to make a contribution.
That's interesting because those next oldest guys, like I'll just use the secondary, for example. It's because I know it the best. But
yeah.
It's like if you're an older guy or a senior, you're basically talking to a way underclassman.
Yeah.
Like T. Hill is operating with like Charles and Sanders and Boodle,
guys that at best it's their second year in the program.
Hartzog's talking to a young guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like this very look at Bullock.
Yeah.
You're gonna go arm in arm with Shavers,
who just got there.
Right.
Yeah. Bears
only played half a season.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I feel really, really good about this. My newcomer that was flying under the radar that I'm most looking forward to seeing is still the same, and I've been emphatic about him, and I think he has a really good year.
Who's that?
Bullock.
Oh, he's not a newcomer.
I know, but you said.
Oh, I thought you said newcomer.
Well, I did.
Okay.
That, or an incumbent that we don't
talk about.
That is flying under.
He's definitely flying under the radar.
Oh yeah.
That's a guy that nobody's really talking about, and if he's good,
if he plays like he practices, like I think he's capable, and I've seen
like he's physically capable of playing.
Yeah, he looks like he could be a dude, and quietly, because he gets no burn.
Yeah, none at all,
except on this show.
We can't wait for.
So I'm either going to be really, really smart, or I'm going to be like those folks on your FSU message board that blame the media for overhyping the team. Did you see that on Message Board Geniuses?
Yeah.
Apparently, it's the media's fault.
You know whose fault it is?
FSU's.
Florida State. They didn't play very good football. That's what happens. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We'll wrap up hour number 1 coming up next. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where you can join us on Friday for our live show, our breakfast show. Get your spots reserved on eventbrite.com. Search Hurrdat Sports, and you can join us on Friday. There'll be all sorts of different breakfast items for you to choose from. And if you want some breakfast cocktails, get your tailgate started like a day early, good to go. We got you covered here as well. That's presented to you by EP Foundation Repair. We'll do 4 of those throughout the season. First one is on Friday. I'm excited to see all of your bright and shining faces to hang out here with us.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited.
Me too.
DB is a little antisocial.
I'm excited. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. Shane, I need you to just clip out the Caleb Bennings, and then I can point to you whenever I need you to say it. Just the Caleb Benning part.
It's awesome.
Just so I can take victory laps. So I don't want to. Actually, that's not what I want to talk about right now. But I wanted to talk about MJ Sherman, kind of not necessarily him specifically, but sort of a lot of guys in that MJ Sherman mold a little bit, because didn't tell me if I'm wrong here. It feels like we have this tendency, especially with transfers, that if a guy doesn't pop immediately, we kind of just assume he's not any good.
Yeah.
Whether it's Elijah Judy, whether it's MJ Sherman, whether it's trying to think who else. Bly Hill this year is a good example, maybe. We don't know what he's going to do this year, especially coming off the injury. But how many people have just totally written off MJ Sherman and Elijah Judy after last year?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely happens. I feel like Maverick Noonan's kind of in that deal, even though he didn't transfer. It's just the premise is, well, he hasn't come up, or it's not immediate, so therefore yada yada yada.
Yes.
Right.
Must not be very good.
Could be a Sledge, could be a Gatula, could be
Sledge is a great example.
Donovan Jones. It could these young guys that are kind of like
anybody that's new to the program.
Close.
Yeah.
But we do have to be patient. And I think we'll have to get used to that a little more, because these guys are so developmental. But you can see what they're trying to do with how they built the roster. When an old guy is talking to a young guy, see, that's a good thing, right? It's if I want to be talking to like a Calvin Jones, I don't want to be talking to the guy that's 1 year older than me.
Yeah. You were talking to the guy that's done it a little bit.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess you can design the roster like that, but you need a little good fortune.
Yeah. And you need your older guys to be good guys.
Exactly.
That's the hard part.
That's the part, especially when you're inheriting them.
Yeah. And that's sort of what I was trying to get to last segment, right? Is when I said he kind of lucked into it. He lucked into the fact that a lot of those guys were good dudes.
Well, I don't think luck. So I think now they could always be wrong.
Sure.
But I do think they're looking for particular guys out of the portal.
Right. So, I mean, I'm talking about the guys he inherited, not the guys the portal guys, I agree. Like, they're looking for something specific. With the guys he inherited, he kind of lucked out that a lot of those are good dudes.
Yeah. I mean, you may have to have some good hard sit-downs like Ty Robinson talked about.
For sure.
I was so relieved like going way back to Indy, that he remembered that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't being a weirdo. I mean, kind of. But I was
Only
like,
a little bit.
I'm like, what are they over there talking about?
Yeah.
And what is taking so long?
Yeah.
I walked through the building, did a stop, stopped at academics. Like I'm basically loitering.
Yeah.
And they're still out there talking.
I think it does help.
And he
also.
was like, oh yeah, definitely.
I think it does help also going back to that tie, Rob, in the conversation with Coach Rule that we talked about in Indy. I think it helps that Coach Rule's like, hey, this is just how it's going to be, or this is how it is.
Yeah.
If this isn't for you, cool. Like, we're okay.
And the cool thing is not cool. That's not the word. The interesting thing for me is those guys that have kind of been the guys that are going to need to be the guys. Those are the guys I'm watching. I said this a 3 weeks ago, the Tommy Hills,
Bullock.
right? A Bullock, a Ty Robinson, a Nash.
I mean, Corcoran needs to be that guy.
Right?
Corcoran has to be that guy.
So are you ready for what comes with this new mindset under the new regime when you've got your feet wet?
And you're not catching people off guard.
You ready to dive in now? Like
Yeah. You're ready to go get it.
Because those guys are critical.
Yeah.
Right? Tommy Hill has to be good if Nebraska is going to do
100%.
what they want to do.
He's got to be the guy that people are talking about as maybe like a second rounder now. He's got to be that guy.
So pressures.
Hartzog's got to be that guy.
He's definitely in that discussion.
Gifford's got to be that guy.
Definitely in that discussion.
Right?
Right.
There's a difference between
that's
hey, you're better than we thought.
That's how you know if Nebraska can transition to the next step, or will those guys that we're counting on be able to hold up? But the important thing is you have. So why does Coach Rule say that clip about the two young guys in particular? Because he knows, and we all know, if anything happens, like those guys are up.
Yeah, they're next.
Right?
It's go time.
So you can't pick everybody.
Yeah.
You have to pick a couple of guys that have
get ready.
that have shown you.
Yeah.
That, and because it's just like that in all levels. If you want to coach yourself into having options.
And the other thing, and we've talked about this, not to bring up Jaden Doss twice in 2 segments, but we talked about this with the guys that are ready early might not always be the guys that you roll with later. Right?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Which
is a good point.
A thing that we make an assumption about.
That's 100% accurate.
Like just because somebody's ready earlier doesn't mean they're going to be the guy later.
That's
right. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example of this on this roster besides Jaden Doss.
Pick a receiver that you don't think will trot out there in the top.
Yeah,
5.
so Malachi is a good example too, and that's a guy that played because he had to, right? And physically was.
You get the sense that Ja'Cory Barney's snaps will increase.
Yeah, I would think Barney's ahead of him.
No, I'm talking about as another guy.
Oh yeah.
Right, like you may roll out there with Banks, Nair, Fedoni, and Lloyd.
Yeah.
Right. Not bad.
No, you feel okay with that.
Pretty good. But there'll be some other young guys, and I'm not saying that Jalen isn't a young guy because he is.
But he's got a little more experience.
But see, he's only going to get better too. That's why I always talk about like the off season. And even though you did something, are you a guy that's continuing to be the best version of yourself, or are you just trying to be better than everybody else on your team?
Yeah. Because
you know what you can't control with the ladder is
everybody else. And
it's how they recruit.
Well, and
so don't rest on that.
It's funny you bring that up because Coach Rule he brought a couple things up that kind of go into that on Saturday. First one was he was talking about the process, right? He says the process isn't the schedule. It's this mindset of we're going to dominate the things that we can control, right? That's what you're talking about.
100%.
It's about if you've got that mindset of, okay, we can be a great football team, that's the process. It's not, okay, I got to make sure I go to weights and then I got to make sure I go to meetings. And that's part of it. You have to do those things to do well in the process because those are things that you can control. But that's how it translates from those things to the actual football field is okay, what can I control here? Okay, go dominate that.
Always asking the young guys how they can level up.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny you brought up MJ Sherman, because playing the position that Caleb does, guys have to be good in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I may say, hey, who are you comfortable playing behind? Like, who do you like rerouting twos? Who's good with the spill? Like, who do you trust?
Trust. Who do you trust?
Because, everybody loved his sophomore film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, he's flying around. Well, yeah, it's because he played behind this guy named Jack Wimmer, right? Like, Wimmer was a stud.
Yeah.
And when guys can dictate, it cleans up everything else. And I'm not saying Caleb wasn't good. I'm saying because Wimmer was great, it allowed a young guy to play fast,
to flourish.
To play fast early.
Because you can get out of your head then, right? Because you don't have to think about, okay, what's Wimmer going to do?
We went through a disguise period this morning, right? We have a couple of young safeties, but I have some older OLBs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, hey, get that relationship with the two of you on this side because that's the guy that you've got to trust in front of you. You give him a call and you know that he's going to spill and it's just between you two.
Mm-hmm.
Trust it.
Well,
right?
It's the same thing.
Or if he can't box it. So like I'm a big old guy talking to young guy thing because number one, he harped at it on Saturday. But why it works is Ben Scott's got to be able to talk to Justin Evans and know like, hey man, what I'm telling you is real, but not only that, I'm telling you because I believe in you. And it's like the walking cheat code.
Yeah.
The more you trust the information coming from the old heads, man, it's a beautiful thing. That's why the old guys are important.
But here's the tricky part. The old guys also have to not be worried about the young guy taking his job. That's the hard part.
That's when the magic happens.
We're going to talk to Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're joined now by Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, Sam, you seem stationary and inside. Are you trying to stay out of that 100-degree heat, or you just got a chance to settle in with school drop-offs and all of that?
I'll be out there. We don't drop any kids off anymore. Mary's 16.
Oh, that's right.
She drives herself.
How great is that?
Listen,
it's great.
Like your blood pressure will be, docs will be like, oh my God, Sam, you're so much healthier. Your blood pressure is great. You're like, yeah, I don't have to go to pick up and drop off lines anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unbelievable. She's more responsible now than she was last year when we took her.
Oh,
she leaves on time.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, she doesn't want the stress herself. It was easy when you had to deal with it. So now she's like, yeah, I don't want to go through that. I think I'll be on time.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Like your kids hit a certain age, and what they really kind of need is that perfect balance of freedom. And you got, there's still some structure, obviously, but it helps when they actually get a little bit of freedom and they handle it well.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, there's moments that are good. There's moments that are still frustrating. But
speaking of handling it well, how about the difference in NFL to college in terms of how young quarterbacks get to sit early in preseason once they're anointed the guy, but yet in college it's like we don't really want to say when a job is won until we actually think that the job is won.
Right. I think it's been obviously the job's been won for a while, I think, but they took their time and I'm glad they got it done before today. I don't think that's what the focus needs to be today. So I'm glad they were able to complete that task last week. I would have liked to just talk to Raiola last week, but we'll get him on Tuesday and that'll be the Dylan day. And I noticed that he and his dad, they're going to become popular T-shirts. They're both wearing these shirts that kind of have both of them on them. His dad from his Nebraska days and Dylan today. So they're going to be popular T-shirts. And I kind of appreciate that Dylan leans into that. I think it really does mean something to him that his dad played here and his uncle coaches here. And I do think he'll carry that with him into the season. It matters to him for sure.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, as we await a depth chart, which I believe is supposed to be released today, Are you expecting any surprises, or are there any areas you're looking at specifically that you're interested to see?
Yeah, I mean, there could be surprises. I don't know exactly what we'll see from how many oars there'll be at the running back spot.
Mm-hmm.
It would be surprising to me if there weren't any. There was just the number one, but we'll see. I think I'll probably be looking at just the order of merit at receiver and what that looks like. If there's a bunch of oars there as well, I have a pretty good idea of who I think they're going to start, because I think I have a pretty good idea of what they want to do.
You picked a hard one, because sometimes receivers doesn't always tell you the truth if a guy can play multiple positions.
Right.
Like, the number 2Z may be the number 2 slot, but there's 2 slots listed. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah. So I think you're going to see Jalen Lloyd play a lot. I don't know that Jalen Lloyd will be on the field for the first snap. I think they want to try to get a perimeter passing game going, where quick throws, and I think you're going to see Janiron Bonner, playing football for Nebraska to some degree, getting out there and being on the perimeter. Now I think they've got plays for him too. I think they have plays for him as well, but I think, there's an opportunity to get Banks the ball early, or so you could see some multiple tight ends. I just think that they want to find a way to keep defenses off balance without running the quarterback. And one of the ways you do that is to get the ball out in the perimeter and, let guys run a little bit. So I think you'll see some of that. I don't know how that's all going to play out in terms of when they play Colorado and it's 3rd and 6. I'm going to guess Jalen Lloyd's on the field, but we'll have to see what happens.
You got to imagine, with all these receivers, the RPO game would have to be huge.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're going to use that like an extension of perimeter run game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. That would be the hope, and I think Dylan will be fine at that. I think he doesn't have the fastest release of all time, but he's got a quick release, and the ball gets where it needs to go very quickly. So Dylan can do all the arm slot stuff, and he can throw it. He's a very skilled player, so he can throw it kind of like a baseball player. He can kind of throw that quick pass, sidearm, and they're accurate. I think that's what's important. It was obviously a challenge for Harburg because they didn't run the plays. And so they just didn't. It was a huge challenge for Adrian Martinez. That was a play that he just wasn't very good at. Conversely, Taylor Martinez was good at those throws. And he was good at being able to throw. He couldn't maybe throw 40 yards downfield very well, but he could throw that little, hitch pass or tunnel screen. In the modern offense, college football, you have to be able to run those plays, and I think Dylan's going to be pretty good at it.
Sam, as you kind of think about some of the things that we've heard in whether it's from Coach Rule or from coordinators, players throughout the offseason, is there an area that, I don't know if concerned is the right word, but as we're finally in game week, like what's the area that you have the most question marks about?
I think that one of the areas that he has question marks about, obviously, is the kicking game.
Sure.
So the field goal and the place kicking game.
Yeah, he pulled no punches about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a definite concern there about, doing a good job at that spot. I think going into a game like this, obviously UTEP's going to go fast. And so concerns about how you manage no huddle and how you manage an offense that's probably going to try to mix deep shots and quick throws. So they're going to try to test your corners a little bit. And so, not Tommy Hill, I think will be fine, but how does Marquise Buford handle that? He hasn't played corner in a game in a while. How does Sia Wright handle that? He's played a lot of games. So, I think there's a number of considerations to keep in mind. And those are probably some of the ones that I would think about. One of the challenges of playing a team like UTEP is they're going to move at a certain pace, and you got to be ready for that. Simultaneously, if they have a couple of drives where they just go 3 and out and 3 and out, they're they're going to have to slow their offense down. So I think Nebraska wants to go out and get a couple of stops really quickly, put 14 on the board, and then UTEP's got to do something else. They can't put themselves in a position where they're putting their defense out there for 85 plays like Fresno State did about a decade ago.
You know what I think, and they're certainly smarter than me, so maybe people think this is an aha moment, or a duh moment, but I think something that's underappreciated that they've been practicing is who to talk to and who does the talking and who's receiving the information through their headsets. Because there's so much that goes on with that I think sometimes fans don't realize. Sometimes the person receiving the information is good at receiving it, but he's not good at relaying it. Sometimes you don't want to lose that ability for another coach because he's on the headset and he may be good someplace else on the sidelines. Like those kinds of things, practicing it and getting comfortable with it, I think are understated, because how many times did you watch college football this weekend and quarterbacks or defensive players had to put their hands to their ears? It seemed like it was a little disjointed or it wasn't smooth. And maybe that's it's a technical issue, but I think the fact that they're practicing it shouldn't be understated.
For sure. Yeah. So this will happen when they play road games. You know, the technology inside the helmets is not probably quite as good as it needs to be. And there are times when I think it can be hard to hear. Well,
yeah, it's going to be loud, right? Like watch on defense.
Yeah. I don't know how much they'll use it on defense, but yeah, I think that's going to be one of the challenges is how they use it, because, you know, the noise and things like that. One of the things that I'll be looking for is, you know, when a drive is over, and they kind of went back and forth with this. So Satterfield initially started the season on the field. I don't think that was exactly what they wanted. Then he moved to the booth, and Matt Rule was doing a lot of the coaching. And I don't know. Did Matt Rule kind of take over the quarterback coaching at some point last season? It seemed like it. Guys would run off the field, and he would kind of do the talking to Heinrich Harburg, and that's fine. But now they're going to have a designated quarterback coach, and I think that'll probably help. That Glenn Thomas will be the guy that they do most of the talking to, and obviously Rule can put in his 2 cents, but they're really going to benefit from having a specific quarterback coach on the sidelines. That's probably something that they missed a little bit last year. So, yeah, now that you can have pretty much anybody coaching, it's not a question of divvying up the assignments perfectly. It's making sure you don't have too many voices in the ear of the player. And I think Rule said that Satterfield is going to be the primary voice in Raiola's ear during the games because he's the play caller.
Sam, kind of on that same note, you're right. He did say Satterfield would be in his ear, but I have to imagine he'll still get talked to by Glenn Thomas in person. Like, are you worried about that dynamic at all, being kind of too, like you said, too many voices in Raiola's ear there, or how do you see that process kind of playing out?
I think if they talk the same or same language is fine.
Yeah, I think Thomas being there will be good. And then Satterfield's going to be calling the plays. And so I think all that makes sense. You don't want to give the quarterback too much information before the snap. I think in those moments, what you want to try to do is be a good caddy, not Jordan Spieth's caddy because he talks all the time, but you want to be a caddy that just says, okay, you've got your plan, put a good swing on it. Let's run the play. Let's go. Like you don't want to overload the quarterback in that moment. Maybe you give them one swing thought, so to speak. You give them one thing. Hey, watch this. But I think that's probably the extent of it. Raiola's going to be fine. In that portion of it, I think he's going to be just fine. I think the area where you're going to want to watch just how he does is, and they mentioned it, that his footwork needed to have work. He's just got to make the ordinary throws the same way that you make them. Just put step to the guy, make the throw. Don't sail the pass. All those components. I think those are just things he's going to have to work on. Making the ordinary plays, making smart, solid throws. That's where I think he's going to have to work being good. But I think he's got good intuition and all the things that you would hope he'll have. He'll make some mistakes, but I don't anticipate him making an unusual amount of mistakes. I think he'll be pretty decent.
So I kind of like the precursors about the plan and with the quarterbacks and not burning red shirts. Like, he was pretty specific, and I imagine they've had these conversations with all position groups, and you certainly want to win the game first, right? Like, you want to play at a certain level that establishes the standard. But how do you think Nebraska plays it with the 4 games versus not 4 games versus if some of these games, if games go the way that they want them to, how do they set that standard? You think those are pre-talks with those potential players, or do you think they're more playing it by ear?
At the quarterback position, I think they would very much like to redshirt Danny Kaelin. That's he was kind of talking around it, but that's what they'd like to do. And they have 4 games with which, to get him valuable reps, which is a third of the regular season. They have an opportunity to get him valuable repetitions if that's what they need to do because they're way ahead in the game. So I think they would probably prefer to redshirt Danny. The question then becomes how and how often do they use Heinrich Haarberg on the field, and in what ways? I don't know that Heinrich's going to be a receiver. We'll just see. He could be maybe a tight end. He could potentially be a wildcat quarterback.
I like to take Coach word at his rule because he hasn't lied to me. But when he says we're going to use Haarberg, like, I think they're going to use him.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's like, well, we got to be smart. I certainly don't want to lose my second string quarterback on a fullback dive. First of all, I gushed a little that he used the term dive because nobody says fullback dive anymore. So, my crush continues. But like, I think he's telling us I think he's telling us exactly what he wants, how he sees it. You don't go through the Frost analogy, even though he was answering a specific question, without having an idea of how you want to use the guy. Right? He was too precise. Like, he's clearly thought about it.
Yeah, as well they should. I think that if you're going to have him on your roster, then finding a way to use him is probably an important component of trying to make your team better. And again, I think Danny Kaelin could be a very good college quarterback. I think part of what they're saying is that he just needs to grow up a little bit physically and, work on his arm and all those components. But I think that he has a bright future ahead. I don't know if he's going to want to wait 3 years. I think he's just as good and maybe better than the guy they have coming in this coming season. A lot of people, there's been a lot of fanfare around TJ Latif, but I think Danny's just as good of a player. So, I think there's time for him to develop. Dylan, obviously, the goal there is to have him, be an incredible player for 3 years and then head off to the league. And I don't know if that'll happen, but
and you put 2 years in between he and DK, then you try to put 2 years in between. Yeah. I mean, I can see how they're trying to put the plan together.
Yeah, I think if Nebraska, for example, has a big year this year, that they may be in the market for a 26 quarterback that's potentially quite special. You can't get too caught up in the what do we do if we can't just sign a 5-star every year? Yeah, you can.
I can't imagine. Look, I get it, right? I clearly people will say I lack objectivity, but I always tell people I'd rather be right than well liked. Like, my affinity for Coach Rule isn't because for anything other than I think he's good for something that I love, right? Like, I clearly love the university. I think if this staff has success, watching them on the recruiting trail in a year would be out of control. Sam, they're so good at what they do. They're so good at identifying and locking in and talking and building relationships. If you remotely give him ammo of like an 8-win season, he'd be incredible.
Yeah, and they've recruited pretty well without having that.
Right.
So,
like, can you imagine?
Yeah, he has it. Yeah, I can actually. Like, I've thought about like the, and I kind of wrote about that today. Like, if they're able to have the kind of season they're truly capable of, the trajectory for the program can go up really, really fast. That's why this season is so important. Like, you can imagine a 6-6 season this year. Hey, they went to a bowl, yay! But they're gonna have to rebuild their lines next year, and they do. Like, you can't just, well, it'll all be fine. Well, will it? Like, you have.
Oh, I would say retool, but I get it because you lose a ton of starts.
Yeah, well, you're gonna lose 4 guys that are 23 years or older on the offensive line, and then on the defense. And it's just, you always build in. You can't assume that redshirt freshmen and redshirt sophomores are going to be as good as the 6th-year seniors you paid to come back, which they did. If they had really wanted to say, hey, you know what, year 3, they wouldn't have allocated their NIL money to all the guys that came back. They would have just said, hey, you know what, we're going to go young. We think we can win 6 or 7 this year with a young team, and then next year we're going to be really good. So
I don't want to speculate. I don't know what they allocated to who. But here's like along that line though, Sam, where you talked about like who's going to talk to the quarterbacks and who's going to talk to this. One thing, kind of getting back to this coach rule thing, is. Yeah, I always say common language builds an accountability, right? So Sat and Thomas and McGuire, those guys can be on the same page. They're doing that. You know what I'm excited about if the sidelines works that way? Is whoever needs a touch can get Coach Rule's talk, right? If he wants to go over and talk to position group X, he knows that somebody else has got it on the back end, right? So the better that he's equipped his staff, the freer he is to be what he's really good at. And that's attacking strategies and psyches. Like he's an empowerment guy. So the more he gets to empower people and put his stamp on things, the better off that team's going to be.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. There's an incredible opportunity this season, and the schedule is there to do it. And I think they have the players. As I wrote today, they spent the entire offseason signing players who are old guys, and they didn't have to do that. They could have gone out and said, "Well, let's go out and get a bunch of 4-star guys that decided to leave other places." On 3 and 247 is going to think we did a really good job signing these guys because they have high ratings and we'll get pats on the back in 2 years when they come to fruition. And they didn't do that. They went out and got Micah Mazuka, who's like a 5th-year senior, Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nayor, who am I missing? Stephon Thompson. They went out and got old guys. Mm-hmm. They went out and got guys who could contribute right away and have 1 year left because they think this is the year. They think they have a chance to be pretty darn good this year. And the one long-term play they made was Dylan Raiola. Right? He's the one that kind of blew up the Kyle McCord thing. But, A, I think he's just as good as Kyle McCord, right now. And B, if he can get it done, if he can just play steady football, I think Nebraska thinks they have all the other pieces in place to become a very good team this year. And if they're able to get it done this year, how much momentum do they create for the future? They create a lot of momentum.
That's our guy, Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate it. Great stuff as always. And real quick before we let you go, about 30 seconds. Could we get a record prediction from you?
8-4.
All righty. You heard it here first. Sam McKewon, 8-4. We appreciate it, Sam. Have a good week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. 8-4.
Is that weird?
What?
I just think.
Are you writing them down? I'm going to ask everybody.
I think Coach Rule would be really. Who needs a touch? If I want to go over and talk to MJ on defense, I can. If I want to
freeze them up.
Yeah,
if you have to go talk to the quarterbacks, that means you can't go talk to other people that need it.
I like him as many places as he wants to be.
I think that matters. I really do. Coming up next, I do want to get into the volleyball documentary now that everybody's seen it and not just us. We don't have to talk around things to avoid spoilers. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we're brought to you by our friends at the Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to support their cause of finding better treatments and one day a cure for childhood brain cancer. You can donate right there on the page, see what events are coming up, sign up to volunteer, and more. All of that at teamjackfoundation.org.
I don't always look at the StreamYard.
Yeah.
But so did you see, how long has Josh been in here?
A while.
Has he?
Off and on.
Okay. Because that's one of the guys that I always reference.
Yeah.
From like way back.
So he interacts on Twitter a lot too?
Yeah, that's usually.
So maybe that's
so
what
I
I'm
read
thinking.
a lot.
That might be what I'm thinking.
So that's the guy who's a lot of his stuff I use.
Yeah.
When I said, hey, the buddy said, or somebody's. So it's interesting to see him in the stream.
Yeah, I think he comes in off and on, but I do see him on Twitter a lot.
Yeah.
You asked me an interesting question off air about the wide receivers.
Oh. Okay.
Because we're talking about Harburg.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and I think I didn't get a chance to ask Sam this, but I think the amount that we see Harburg play positions other than quarterback is going to be an indicator of, this might be a hot take. I think it's going to be an indicator of how much they trust Jalen Graham's dad, not how much they trust Danny Kaelin.
I could see that. I don't have a good, strong feel on Graham's dad.
I don't either.
To know, but I could see where you'd think that, because it's like, okay.
Because I do think they want to.
Because I think coaches owe it to themselves. They owe it to their players to say, listen, we're not putting anything on the back burner. We're trying to win right now.
Yeah.
So if you feel like H2 gives you the best chance to win now,
by doing other stuff,
if something happens to Dylan, then you got to play that. You don't get a chance to say,
right,
well, this isn't our QB of the future. You got to go with, I'm not sacrificing the long term. And these guys got to know I'm trying to win now. So I get that. And clearly Harburg is the next most ready to play.
He's the number 2.
He has the most wins on that roster of any quarterback.
Yeah. Only wins.
But it's interesting because, we keep talking about these young wide receivers, and I get it. I do. But let's say, for laughs and giggles, Harburg does play some H-back type tight end stuff. That gives you 4 legit dudes in that tight end room, and I'm not even counting Bonner.
Yeah, you're not even talking about the hybrid.
So I'm talking Bork, Fedoni, Lindemeyer,
and Harburg. Yeah, that's 4 dudes.
Okay.
Didn't get to any true freshmen. Didn't get to Bonner.
All those guys have played significant roles in big boy, big time football. Okay.
Yeah.
I set Bonner aside.
Yeah.
Bonner's playing.
For sure.
Right? So then
every time we see Nebraska, Bonner trots out with the ones.
So then you have Banks, Nair, Lloyd, Bonner, put him over there.
Yeah. That's 4.
Bullock.
5.
Barney.
6.
Coleman.
7.
I'm missing one. He's played. Who am I?
He played last year?
IGC.
Yeah, IGC's probably ahead of a bunch of
those. So that's not the order. I'm just saying,
just
like,
naming guys
that are going to.
That's 8.
Play. So what if you want to sprinkle in some of your pass catching tight ends in some of your wide receiver personnel?
Yeah. What if you want Fedoni to be like, you go
the 4th wide? Yeah. What if he's the 4th wide and 10 personnel?
Yeah. What if you want Fedoni to be split out?
Right. Like, so if I get in 10 personnel, 1 back, no tight ends, do I really not want Fedoni in the game?
Right. You probably want him out there.
I mean,
you probably want him out there.
Is he more reliable as an inside receiver than my 4th best wide receiver?
Yes. I would say so.
But those are the things that they have to think about. That's why I always think, just because you're a young guy and you get talked about doesn't mean you're ready to play either. It's hard.
And I do wonder about Barney as an actual receiver.
And not just as a return
just
get him acclimated in
the return game.
Because in that clip we played, and don't worry, Shane, you don't have to play it again. He said that Barney's already kind of thought of in that deal, right? So he mentioned the 2 young guys on offense. He mentioned the 2 in the secondary.
Yeah, and then he mentioned Barney.
You'd have to think that Shavers is in there too.
I would think so. But
but maybe not at that position. That position is really hard.
The inside linebacker?
So you have Thompson, Baer, and Bullock that are like experienced.
Yeah. And Thompson has experience in Tony White's defense.
Yeah. Who, by the way, that's the first time he was referenced was this week.
Nobody's talked about him, so we assumed he was bad. That's what we do, right?
Yes.
We don't hear about him. We assume he's bad.
Yes. But what do I always say though? Like, I'm even specific about not needing a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to go days without people talking to you or about you, and know that you're okay.
But that's a guy that
I've said that from. It's crazy
on the interior. So you got 3 guys with experience that I'd be surprised if Shavers is ahead of any of them.
Yeah.
But that's also a guy that you've heard his name a lot. They're really, really impressed with him. So maybe do we see him on special teams a lot? Is that a guy that you look at and, coach is like, hey, let's not throw Bullock out there. Let's throw Shavers out there on special teams?
We've got a formation. TK just said something, 4 tight ends and a 2x2. We got a formation called Nasty where we use big bodies. It's in a condensed set. So the 2 buys actually look like wings, but one guy's a stand-up wide receiver.
We love a wing back here.
He's like, can you imagine if it was Lindemeyer, Harburg, Fedoni, and Borkacher? You could do some things out of it.
That'd be a big boy set right there.
And plus, if they break the huddle, would I go big personnel on defense? See, I probably would.
Yeah.
Coach, we'd talk to Coach Jensen and we'd say, hey, when 9, this is just north, and when 9 and 41 are in the game together, hopefully they don't have numbers changes. If they do, we'll figure it out. But we know that we have to play a certain way when 9 and 41 are in the game together.
But good luck covering Fedoni with big personnel.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Oh, I get it.
Right? Like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Even Harburg. Good luck covering Harburg with big personnel.
Or what if you use Bonner?
Yeah, instead of Lindemeyer. Yeah.
I mean,
Bonner's a receiver.
So I just say all that to say.
So you're going to cover Harburg, Bonner, and Fedoni on big personnel?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably not.
But then you're going to get your head beat in if you don't go big personnel.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of different things they can do.
That's why I was surprised Sam picked wide receiver because I don't know how telling that will be.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, you could put 2 guys at each spot, but I don't know if that would be like your top 6 or 7 pass catchers.
No, it's going to be interesting because with McGuire, that's going to be really interesting to see how he manages the snaps in that room.
Yeah, I mean, he's just so good developmentally. I figure they'll be
sure.
It would probably boil down to the usual. How much do you know? Yep. How much do you know and who can I trust?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I am interested to see how it plays out, though.
Right.
Because I don't really know.
Because what have we taught? What's the first thing that comes up when people talk about the offense that isn't the quarterback?
Wide receivers.
The young wide receiver.
Yeah. Well, and I'm excited. I think it's a really, really good room.
Yeah.
I think it's got
to be highly competitive.
It's got exciting. A chance to be, I think, the second best unit on the team. After defensive line, it's got a chance with the experienced talent, with the young guys coming up.
So let me ask you this now.
Yeah,
I asked in the preseason. I usually ask once a year. Which room do you think the floor is closest to the ceiling? Maybe not your best room, and it may be, but the floor is closest to the ceiling.
Well, that's a great question.
Oh, so I had 2 thoughts initially. That's a good question. I don't think it's wide receiver.
I don't either.
Because I actually think the ceiling's really high in that group.
I don't think it's the wide receiver room either. That didn't even come to mind.
No, I just wanted to throw that out there because that's what we were talking about.
And is the group that you say
So I almost take that as not a negative, but like the floor is closest to the ceiling, because obviously you've got a positive in there that the floor is.
I know the position group you want it to be, but I bet you're not going to say them.
You want it to be what? Your quarterbacks?
No.
Honestly, the position that came to mind was.
God, that would be great if it was quarterbacks. It just never is.
Right, but you're talking about like a really high floor, like you feel pretty good about that. That's kind of your game manager type. Because
wouldn't that be something if it ever was quarterbacks?
I thought it was running backs.
I think that's the actual answer. But you know who I want it to be?
Who?
O-line.
See, that was the other one I thought.
I think the real answer is running backs. I do.
That's what yeah. But part of that's, again, that I think they're just fine. Like, I don't think the ceiling's super high, but I think they are fine.
I think if you want to win a lot of games, I think you want it to be O-line. And it might be.
That was my second answer.
It might be.
My second answer was the O-line. Because I think the floor is reasonably high there.
Yeah.
We'll get back into this and more coming up next on
maybe
Hurrdat Sports Radio.
volleyball, too.
At some point, probably. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And we were talking about what units on the team had the ceiling and floor closest to one another. I said running backs, which I think is accurate. You said you'd like it to be O-line, and I did consider them.
Yeah. I think you have a couple worthy candidates.
The other position group that I was thinking about that we didn't get to, could I make an argument for linebackers?
Yeah, for sure the Jacks. I mean, you got some fellas in there.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you're starting with Sherman.
You got MJ, you got Jamari, you've got Maverick, you've got Prince Will,
who might be the most physically talented guy in the room.
I mean, that's a good one.
Because I feel like
because we forget how far along Mav was before
the injury,
the knee injury.
Yeah, but even if with him as a total unknown, we just rattled off 3 guys in that group that you feel pretty good about. Mm-hmm. We saw Prince Will make plays last year as a true freshman. Oh, yeah. We saw MJ Sherman, and we've heard about MJ Sherman. That's a group that
That's a sneaky good one.
I feel like you know what you're getting. Now, the only reason I didn't go with them is I actually think the upside's a little bit higher. So I didn't go with them because
D-line?
No, with that Jack group.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think if Prince Will does kind of figure things out, if Maverick does kind of pick up where he left off pre-injury, if MJ Sherman really has gotten his ducks in a row in terms of his ability, like I think the ceiling's actually reasonably high in that group.
I probably agree.
So that's the reason I didn't go.
But I don't know if the floor is really low either.
It's not. I don't think it is. I just think the ceiling is higher with that group than it is the running back group.
I'll give you a group that if it were them would be an incredible group.
Who's that?
Who would you guess?
Secondary.
Yeah.
But we worry about the floor.
Because there's so many guys.
Yeah, there's so many dudes.
And the range could be incredible, but if that answer was that room.
Yeah, if you could have the floor, if you knew where the floor was there. Because here's what we worry about, right? We worry about, okay, can we get a whole season of what we saw the last from Tommy Hill?
Yeah, because you know that Hill and Singleton, when healthy, are Sunday guys.
Are good, right? Singleton.
So when you're starting with Sunday guys,
it's a good place to start.
It's a good place to start for a high ceiling.
But you worry about, okay, what's going on at that other corner? It's been a while since Buford played corner, right? You worry about, okay, what if somebody goes down? All of a sudden, you're going to play a young dude at that point. Mm-hmm. If anybody goes down or needs help. What happens if you have to put a third corner out there? Who is that? Is that Jeremiah Charles? Is Bly Hill going to be healthy? Like, there's a lot of question marks after that initial group.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think we worry about the floor with them.
Yeah.
But if we got halfway through the season and we're like, floor's pretty high on this group.
Pretty interchangeable.
You'd feel pretty good. That would be a really high level group then.
To play behind that D line?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I give Dvorak the benefit of the doubt.
Sure. Yeah. That's a guy that you're having affinity for.
Yep. Got no qualms there.
Yeah.
I'd like to be taught by him.
I even think you could throw in that inside linebacker group to the Jack group and just call it a whole
with Bear Thompson and
Bullock. And then you got some young guys and like Vincent Shavers in there as well.
One of the reasons I hope they're good just because I haven't been able to just rattle off guys that I think are good players like this freely. And since I can't
been a long time.
Remember.
It's been a really long time. Now, some of them we think they're good. We're not sure yet, right?
Yeah.
But you got a decent idea.
I'm not reaching. Like I've seen them play good football.
Yes, they're not hopes and dreams and just
like I've seen Bear play good football.
Grasping at
right. I've seen Bullock play good football.
Yeah.
I've seen that D-line play good football.
This isn't like 20.
I'm not talking about Amari Sanders.
Right. That's a guy you haven't seen him yet.
I'm not talking about Ja'Cory Barney.
Yeah. Guys that you're like, oh, I hope.
Yeah.
Right? Last year with Malachi Coleman, we're like, well, I hope.
Yeah. I'm not talking about those guys.
No. Even Dylan Raiola, we hope.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen him practice some. We've seen him in spring games some. But right now, you hope he's good.
Yeah.
You're talking about guys you've seen play good football. And so that's not.
It's been a while.
It's like stained. It's been a while.
It has.
You're not grasping at straws here. It's not like, I mean, honestly, the first thing I thought of was when like Taylor Martinez was maybe going through it a little bit. And we're like, what about Breon Carnes? Like, that's not what this is. Right. Yeah. It's like, well, what if we tried Cody Green again?
I know when you said quarterbacks, it would be amazing if it was that. I feel like the quarterback room would be about as amazing as the DB room, except there's much smaller numbers, so you think it'd be easier.
Yeah.
It just almost never works that way. Like, what happens when we watch backup quarterbacks? We're like,
it's a disaster.
Right.
It's horrifying.
Doesn't matter who it is. It's like, what is going? I mean, unless you're G-Check and you just get into big packages and you run it down FSU's throat. But I'm not going to bring up old stuff.
Why we got to go there?
Because 7 looked like he was running a lot like 10 on Saturday.
Why we got to go there? Seemed unnecessary.
Just say, how are the cookies?
Pretty there. Right?
Did anybody eat the cookies?
Yeah, a bunch of people did. Somebody brought like a cake too, and like a lot of people ate cake.
Really?
Yeah.
Somebody's significant other?
I don't know.
You don't want to put them on Front Street?
No, I really don't know if it was a significant other or if it was like a bundt cake.
Oh, my barber swears by them. Everything but well, we're not gonna do free advertising.
Yeah,
but
you got to pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a bundt cake. I think that's what they're called. The ones that are kind of like circular.
Yes,
yeah.
Ravi, that's what they are.
Well, I know.
Is your wife a pastry chef?
Yeah, but I'm a diabetic, so it kind of evens out. It's called balance, DB.
Yeah, that word's used a couple different ways in our house.
No, it was good. It was a good setup.
Or like when she says, "I'm smart and you're not," it's called balance.
Oh, super happy.
No, it was a good setup. You're right. He's got a good setup.
I know. He doesn't mess around.
Yeah, it was fun. But yeah, people enjoyed the desserts.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
Just because you don't eat desserts.
Was he crabby?
No, I mean, I think everybody was disappointed.
So they were pretty much all, I almost said the wrong word, Seminole fans.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You know what I wanted to say.
Yeah, it was, there's like a group.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, you guys. I mean, I've been there. That's why I don't do Nebraska watch parties. Glad I got a job. I'm about to sit and be miserable with you people.
Just hanging out by yourself.
I remember the first couple times my in-laws watched the game with me. I felt so bad.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to pause this. Hang on.
She's like, I got to go back and look at that.
Don't worry. I'll catch up. You're just eye rolling across the place.
Oh, so you got people like watching the game on their phone while you're watching, trying to dissect things.
Fudge.
What do you do when you're calling the game? Like you can't rewind. What are you doing?
So I do.
Do you like have it up so you can go back?
Glad you asked.
Yeah. I'm curious,
So I have stat broadcast. Remember why I like to memorize numbers?
Yeah, so you don't have to have.
So I don't have one other thing that I have to look at.
Yeah.
Stat broadcast will be on one thing. The game will either be on my computer through YouTube or on one of the TVs.
Okay.
I have Jumbotron.
Okay.
Which is usually after it. I get a little bit of a split second.
Okay.
So then I'm actually watching. So I can. It's weird.
Gotta keep your head on a swivel there.
It's a gift, right?
Yeah.
But I can see real time. That's where like knowing the stuff really helps me because I don't have to worry about like 3-by or 2-by or they were in near for like
you see it's instant recognition.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I don't have to waste time on that. I can look at, and plus I always look at the same two things: person or formation, and then O-line, because the O-line will take me to
whatever's happening.
Yep.
There you go.
That's it.
A little peek behind the curtain.
That's why I don't need any extra paper up there.
Yeah, you got a lot going on already.
Yeah, sometimes I'll do tick marks.
For what?
So, early on, like if I don't trust, like when Stat Track or Stat Broadcast is gonna catch up, like I'll look at third and how longs.
Oh, okay.
So like I'll do 3 columns. One will say short, medium, long, and then it'll get a tick.
What's your short, 3 and under?
Yes.
Okay.
So then if I see later on Stat Broadcast that Nebraska's 3 of 11 on third downs, I can look and see.
Add it up real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. They converted 1 short, no longs, 2 mediums, or 2 longs, no shorts.
1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 plus.
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, that's the secret.
That's why I need to memorize numbers.
You start doing that, you can sound just like.
So I'll say things real time, and people will be like, "Oh, how do you know that?" Well, there's a system. Definitely a system.
It's called OCD.
Well, I try not to have to work as hard in some other spots.
Sure. Yeah.
Like it's like controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to look at a roster.
You're trying to set yourself up for success in one way so you can do your other stuff over here.
100%.
I get it.
I'll do the work on the front end to memorize.
Preparation, baby. That's how it works.
And it's not
Just
H.
Leave off the H. That's TB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We've got Bill Bender coming up next to talk about college football here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Bill Bender. He is from the Sporting News and covers college football. Bill, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Bill, how are we doing, buddy? It's good to at least see a glance of you in Indy. You were moving fairly fast. I didn't want to, stop the excellence of execution. I kind of let you do your thing, man. But good to see you.
It's same. It was a quick flyby, I know, and and it's just as soon as we were in Indy, we're here in week 1, and already had a twist in the plot with. Saturday was a plot twist I wasn't planning to write, but you get into the third quarter, you're like, this may go the other way.
Yeah, I full disclosure, and I'm sitting next to an FSU honk, but at least he did defend me, because all offseason I said Georgia Tech would give FSU all they wanted. It just was not a good matchup. But when you hear Coach Norvell say, hey, listen, we need more explosive plays, that means everyone. I hope that he's kind of defending DJ, because number one, he needs some help outside. Number two, he was very accurate. He had 2 drops. How much of that do you put on the offensive game plan versus, well, I can't call it that way because he hasn't shown me that he's capable? Like, where do you fall?
Yeah, you got it. Okay, so DJ got roasted over the weekend.
He did.
And it's not fair, because to me, I thought Florida State poor job of even testing downfield throws. I know they didn't have Hakeem Williams, but I don't think DJ Uwangalele threw a pass over 10 yards until the second half. And this is Florida State we're talking about, right? Like, they have athletes on the outside that can play. Mm-hmm. So, and like you said, I mean, they need it on 4th down twice in clutch time. He makes 2 great throws down the field. So I think some of that's on the game plan. You don't bring in a quarterback from Oregon State, who knows what he got in NIL, bring him in to start. You have to be able to trust him, especially one that's played that much football. So that's my opinion. Maybe I agree. Something in the booth. Maybe they saw something in the booth I didn't, but I would blame the game plan.
Bill, on the defensive side for Florida State, what do you think went wrong with that defensive line? I know they were replacing a couple NFL guys, but it seemed like people were still reasonably high on the group with who they had brought in and who they brought back. What do you think went wrong there, or was that more about Georgia Tech just being able to impose their will?
I think it's more of the latter.
Me too.
I'm not saying Patrick Payton's not a talented defensive end, or Florida State doesn't have some talented players up front. I just think Georgia Tech beat them up front. Yep. And their game plan wasn't fancy, was it? I mean, Jamal Haynes was good.
Count guys in the box. That seemed pretty self-explanatory.
Right. And Haynes King didn't really throw it down the field much either.
Nope.
front, and there was nothing fancy about the game plan. Sometimes when you have a coach like Brent Key, you saw his press conference after, I think they take a cue off the coach. He's from Georgia Tech. He's an alum. I picked Georgia Tech to cover. I'm not going to sit here and say I thought they were going to win the game. I thought they would compete. And Brent Key's got them competing. And this win, bad for the ACC, by the way.
Awful.
Clemson plays Georgia. Miami plays Florida. What happens if your three big brands all lose by the end of week one? They're going to be in trouble.
You know what I
thank God SMU won.
Hey, listen, and North Carolina could lose at Minnesota, which would be a horrible loss.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, I loved his first quarter interview where FSU was kind of running wild. It was real Civ-like on that first drive. And he was so matter of fact. He said, listen, we just need to settle down, take a deep breath, hit our run fits. We'll be fine. We just need to settle down. His delivery let me know, oh, yeah, he's not panicking over anything that happened in that first drive. He's basically saying it's about us, not them. And I was like, oh, this may go the distance.
You know, and you could have posterized a lot of tweets after that first drive where it was Florida State's going to blow them out. I think Florida State had 58 yards rushing on the first drive and not much after. So he was that's why football coaches coach, right? You can't quit after the opening drive. And just a masterful job the rest of the way of, like you said, settling down. The run fits were there. They were terrible against the run last year.
Mm-hmm.
And
221 a game.
Players on that, right. And their defense with Kyle Eford in the middle, he can play. He's one of those old school throwbacks, right? That looks like he should have played in the 90s or 80s, but they've got some guys on that defense that can play.
Bill, let's move past the Florida State Georgia Tech game, so I don't get any more PTSD over here. As we move forward into the actual week one, week 0 doesn't count. I don't know if anybody told you, it doesn't count. Nothing happened.
Just gonna zero it on out, right?
Yeah, it's a week 0. It means nothing, literally. No. As we kind of move into week 1 here with the rest of the college football slate, I guess, you know, it's obviously a hot topic around here with Colorado being on the schedule, but what do you make of this Colorado team from an actual football standpoint? I know it's hard to get past all the other stuff that's going on, but as you look at them as a football team, what do you expect?
Well, one last thing on week 0, and then I will move on. Is it because of that loss, I had to redo my 1-to-134. I had to redo my playoff picture. I'm holding you personally responsible, okay? Writers think in different terms sometimes. As soon as I saw that field goal go in, I was like,
yep. Crumble it up.
You just created a lot of work for me, okay?
This is why I waited to do my playoff predictions until this upcoming Friday, because week 0 doesn't count. Nothing happened.
Yeah, it's just right through. And Colorado. So, things. This back and forth with the reporter has got out of control. If I'm Dion, and I'm a reporter, obviously, I've never had something like this with a coach, but when I did. If I ever do, I either request a call or, hey, I'll come into your office and hash this out. Because I see some of it from Dion's point of view. It's like, if I'm getting trashed over and over and over again, I want to at least know why.
Yeah.
Coaches can say they don't read the headlines. They're lying because everybody does.
Yeah.
On the field, Anders, Travis Hunter, I talked to Dion 2 weeks ago, and he says they have 4 or 5 first-rounders. He thinks the offensive and defensive line is going to be better, and that's what we're watching Thursday night, because we can all lie again, but a lot of people are going to tune in when they play North Dakota State because, A, they either want Dion to win or they want him to lose. And I think he might be the most polarizing coach in the game right now.
100%. Let me give you one. So along those lines, there's 2 games, similar lines that I think could play out similarly. Colorado is at home, whatever it is. It's 8.5, 9. There's a sneaky one.
Oklahoma State, SDSU.
That's another good one.
Yeah.
But let me give you a team that's in the top 10 where you may have to redo your 1 through 34 again. Penn State at West Virginia. I think West Virginia is going to be a handful. That game is, again, 8.5, 9. If you were going to get something expected of a game of games that are supposed to go in similar fashion according to Vegas, is it NDSU in Colorado or is it PSU in West Virginia?
I think Penn State will win, but they're going to have to work for it. I think that's one of those. Well, okay, we can fast forward to Nebraska, Colorado, but I would give you the same speech I'll give you right now. West Virginia and Penn State should play a lot more often.
Yeah.
It's a great regional rivalry.
Yeah.
Great regional rivalry. And the West Virginia fans are going to they'll be ready.
And they're going to be good. I think West Virginia's going to be sneaky good.
Because of Garrett Green. And they got going late last year. They have Donaldson back. They have a good running game. And they ran the ball well against Penn State early last year. Big test for Drew Aller. I think Penn State will struggle a little bit in the first half, but once they get their footing, they'll be fine. And that's what you got to watch in all these games. I mean, a great example from Saturday, not to keep rewinding it, Nevada hung in there for 4 quarters with SMU.
Yes,
Had
they
home
did.
Field, windy environment, excitement around a first-time coach. What is that? Great environment. Haven't beat Penn State at home since 1989. I think they're going to be riled up for that game. The other one I thought you were going to say was I'm really interested to see Michigan new look. They'll beat Fresno State, but when you lose 13 NFL guys, it's going to look different. So I think there's a lot around them that I'm interested to see. I honestly thought that's what you were going to say just because of everything that's going on off the field, which has been going on for a while with that program.
Let's get to SDSU and Okie State because I'm telling you, I follow them close just because they recruit so many of our guys at the high school level, and it's a heck of a program. I think the country will be shocked at how good South Dakota State is in the trenches. That is a big boy football team built up front, man. Does that have your eyeball at all?
Yeah, it does. Now, this could work, but both of these games could work both ways. So, like, same speech with North Dakota State, Colorado. We know the reputation of North Dakota State as an FBS killer. The advantage for Mike Gundy is he got to say that all summer, right? He probably, if I'm Gundy, I would probably show them App State film from Michigan. Hey, this is what can happen if we're not ready to go. Yeah, we've got all our linemen back. We've got Ollie Gordon. We've got Alan Bowman. If we get off to a bad start, this is going to be a game. And I would treat it like a conference game. Some say you don't want to make any game bigger, those kind of things. I'm not there because everything you said, this is a 2-time FCS national champion. They're good up front. They're going to come ready to play. They're going to probably come with nothing to lose. And if they pull that upset, it's huge for their program. I do think Oklahoma State's going to win. It could be tight. And that's one. It's also one that everybody's calling this upset to the point where I'm like, well, it's kind of like the NCAA tournament. They may just come out and blow them out.
Yeah.
Too many 12 seeds. We're talking with Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Bill, who's the team that you're looking at that isn't currently ranked in the top 12, so not a preseason top 12 team, that you think has a real shot at making the college football playoff?
I mean, obviously, well, that's kind of a weird question, not that you're asking it, but the Big 12 champion could be outside the top 12. And the ACC champion, I mean, if you look at our current, like, playoff apology, whatever they're going to – we've got to come up with something marketable on that, by the way. Clemson's ranked 14th, and because Florida State lost, Clemson is technically our ACC champ.
Yeah.
So they're technically outside the top 12. And I think they're being undervalued a little bit. Now, as far as an at-large team, I like Tennessee. I do. I like the balls. I like the quarterback. I like that offense. Their schedule's a little more friendly. Yeah, they got to play Alabama and Georgia. But you know what? You could go 10-2, lose to Alabama and Georgia, beat everybody else, and be fine. And I think they've got a little bit of bounce-back appeal to them with that offense around Nico Yamaliva.
Exact same spread in both games, which has longer playoff implication effects. Notre Dame, A&M, or Miami and Florida.
You know what? I'm going to give you this right now. I'm taking the underdog in both games.
Ooh.
I'm gonna take the Gators.
The line stinks in the Florida game. I don't even know how it's only 2.5, which leads me to believe, rivalry or not, man, Florida could win that game.
At home, at the Swamp. I hearing all summer about how horrible their schedule is. That they know they got to get this one, and they still have dudes on that team, on defense especially. So that'll be a fun game. We don't get to see that game enough.
Yeah.
So I picked Florida, and then, I always tell people this. I blame 12 years of Catholic school that I always lean on the Irish early in the season. And all my buddies were Notre Dame fans growing up. They talked me.
Yeah, you're in the heart of it. You're in the heart of that country.
Yeah. Yep. And it's a tough spot to go down to A&M and win. But I like Riley Leonard. I really like this Notre Dame defense this year. And they always say the defense travels. I think they're going to have to work for it. But Marcus Freeman gets it done. Notre Dame is and they could really make me look foolish this year. But I think the defense and the schedule and everything, if Riley Leonard is who they say he is, they're set up for a decent playoff run.
Bill, how much of your feelings on Florida and Miami just have to do with
nostalgia?
Well, I was not ever really trusting Miami. I mean, how much of it has to do with the fact that, like, how many times have we done this with Miami?
Oh, I every time. And you know what? We had Manny Navarro on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and he talked me into Miami, with Damon Martinez and Cam Ward. And I'm like, stop, Manny. I mean, like, come on. Because of what you just said. We've done this a couple times. I know they're ranked. I know Cam Ward is an exciting ad. Their schedule's set up. If they get by this Florida game, they only play one ranked team, and that's Florida State. And they got a tough game early against Virginia Tech, who I also like their sleeper appeal, by the way.
I do too.
Ralph Russo, I give Ralph Russo credit. He put them in his playoff, and people were shredding him on X. But I'm like, that's what happened. Teams like Virginia Tech are going to make the playoff. Mm-hmm. So good on Ralph to make that call. But, yeah, Miami, it's cry wolf, whatever analogy you want to make. We've done it a bunch of times.
Well, this is crazy for the helmet brand recognition, but to me, it seems like it's flying under the radar. LSU and USC. USC is one of those teams that a lot of people talk about being in that Miami category, right? Like, oh, here we go again. But something tells me that Lincoln Riley is good in these spots when people kind of didn't he seem a little edgy in Indy? He did not seem like a guy that is appreciative of how they're looked at it. SC may be one of those teams that you have to look out for.
He was edgy. I would agree, and we're so used to the buttoned-up coaches at Big Ten Media Day. I know we are. And It's kind of cool to see somebody be like, oh, did he really just say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Good. I can write that later. That's going to be a fun game. And both teams face the same question. I don't think it's quarterback. They both have guys that are going to start on Sunday from last year at quarterback that they're replacing. Garrett Nussmeier and Miller Moss, big shoes to fill. I think they're going to put up a lot of points in this game because the defense remains the question for both. And they both hired new coordinators. And, I mean, if you went on X and put a likability pool up between BK and Lincoln Riley, I honestly don't know who would win.
Yeah.
They might not vote.
Yeah.
But
pass.
You're right. I wouldn't be surprised if SC comes in and wins that game. I picked LSU. You know what? It's a crazy stat is LSU hasn't won an opener since winning the national title in 19. They've lost 4 straight openers.
Yeah,
and that's wild to me. So
they always really play it. They always play a toughie though. But You're right. Like you want to be held in that regard. You got to win those games.
At least Nebraska's in good company there.
Wow.
Like maybe like LSU next year could schedule like a Michigan State or something. But yeah, you're right. They've played Florida State twice, Mississippi State, UCLA, the infamous what did he say, sissy blue shirt or whatever to the kid, and then they got smoked by UCLA. That was not a fun moment for LSU. So it'll be a fun game in Vegas, though.
You got to push your chips in one direction, and they're in similar vein, and we'll get to see them play each other, but not till later in the season. You sliding them to Oregon or to Columbus right there in your backyard in Ohio State?
I think Ohio State, this is the opportunity. It was funny to me, not funny, I mean just surprising that when I looked at the predictions the other day for national title, that there was not one person that picked Ohio State, which is, I mean, good for them. They can use that as motivation.
But I heard this was the best roster ever in Columbus. People keep telling me that.
Right. But that tells me if there's Oregon picks and there's Texas and there's Georgia and there's, I wouldn't rule Bama out. When we get, I think you got to get in. You got to get in. And once you get in, the college football playoff is going to be like the NFL playoff, where as a Packers fan, that's what I always tell people. As a Packers fan, my first priority is get in the playoff, and then anything can happen. Now, is college football going to be like that, where anything can happen? And to me, it still feels like, Georgia, Ohio State, usuals will dominate when we get there. But I would pick I picked Ohio State to win the Big Ten. I could see them splitting with Oregon, going out there and losing, and then beating Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. But I'm wondering what the rematch factor will be.
When do you think we get tiebreakers made official in the Big Ten?
Be nice. It would be nice because I want to know.
Man.
Wait, what? When you guys call me in November, we're going to have these weird hypothetical discussions about, man, what if, Iowa or Nebraska or Rutgers what if they tie with the top? And it's inevitable that there will be ties when you have 18 teams that aren't playing everybody and not split into divisions. I think it's just, it's funny. We clamored to get rid of the divisions for so long that part of me believes it's better to have a divisions from don't have these messes at the end of the year. I do love that we're going to get the top two teams in Indy. Don't get me wrong. But I think we're going to have some messy situations getting there.
You referenced a team. I think it's a little overlooked, and I worry about their backfield. But if I asked you and I said, hey, Bill, is Quinn Ewers better or worse than the perception? Is Quinn, he you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, he's 3,400 and he's 22-6. But do we think Quinn Ewers is that good, or when we think Texas, it's like, oh man, have you seen Quinn Ewers? He's held off Archman. You know what I mean? Like, which is he?
He's inconsistent. He's really good. And the Alabama games, honestly, even the one where he was knocked out early, he was on fire early. His rough, it can get rough pretty quickly. That game at Michigan is going to be our first, no matter what happens in week one, unless a top 5 team loses, that Michigan-Texas game is our first, okay, everybody's watching game, in my opinion.
That's a heck of a week. That's a heck of a weekend.
If Texas loses, we're going to sit here and say, oh, Michigan hasn't missed a beat, Sharon Moore and all these things. He's been able to keep the boa constrictor and those kind of things. If Texas wins, then we'll pile on Michigan. How are they going to possibly get through the schedule? Quinn Ewers is the man. And I think that game is the next judgment for him. And I keep telling my editor, I was like, man, what happens? What are we going to do if get up there in week 2 and Quinn Ewers tweaks his hand and Arch Manning comes in Ann Arbor? I was like, the internet will shut down.
That's Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Bill, we appreciate the time as always. We'll catch up again soon.
Appreciate it, Bill.
That was a lot of fun, guys. Take care. Enjoy week 1. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
That's Bill Bender, our friend from the Sporting News.
Are you all in on Ewers? I think he gets overlooked.
Not all in on Ewers. We can talk about that here in a second. I am all in on Union Omaha. Make sure you get to unionomaha.com. Another match coming up Saturday, September 7th, 7 p.m. at Werner Park. If you just can't stand to watch Nebraska, Colorado, too much stress for you, go spend some time at Werner Park with Union Omaha. Get tickets at unionomaha.com. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and it's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. It's the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets, either at the Sportsbook in Lincoln or in Omaha. You can place bets on nearly every major sporting event, and you can get a little exotic with it. Props, parlays, in-game bets, or if you want to be normal like DB, you can just do the straight bets. That's fine. I like to get a little weird with it. Either way, Warhorse Sportsbook has you covered. DB, I want to keep talking about Quinn Ewers here.
Did I strike up?
No, I think it's an interesting conversation because he's a guy.
Because I'm not sure, right?
Exactly. So that's what I'm going to ask you to bet on. I'm asking you to bet on whether you think Quinn Ewers is the guy that led Texas to a college football playoff, or is he a guy that we aren't really sure about, that we don't necessarily have that much confidence in? Because for a guy that's been around a lot, we don't have that much of a track record with him.
Yeah, I think he's interesting. I think he's a lot like Dylan Gabriel, where you have to get inside just looking at the stats.
Yeah, because the stats are okay. They're not bad.
Yeah.
Especially last year.
Right, he's 3,400.
22-6, 64%. 69%.
Gosh, is he the guy?
Is he that guy?
First blush, I say no.
Because we talk about him as a first rounder.
Like wildly inaccurate. But then he
inconsistent.
Then he had a stretch like against Washington where all of a sudden you left him for dead.
Bill's right. When he's good, he's good.
And he got hot.
Yeah, when he's good, he's good.
I was like, oh.
If you only watch.
I'm like, oh, shoot. Why don't they just turn him loose?
If you only watch Quinn Ewers against Alabama, you would think he is a generational quarterback prospect.
Yeah.
You would be blown away. But then you watch him the rest of the time, and you're like, oh, he's just fine. He's okay. A little inconsistent. Not really sure what to do with him. And maybe this is a bigger question than Quinn Ewers. Maybe this is a Texas question. Maybe this is a Sarkisian question. Are you betting on them?
Well, I think Sark answered the critics last year. Lot of
questions about him.
A lot of expectations. And he met them. And
he did.
We talked 1,000 times about how he had never won 10 games, and he's going to be asked to do something that he's never done in his coaching tenure. And he did it. And I think Sark has built that team. In my opinion, looks like a roster that's built for the long haul.
Really good roster. He's recruited at an unbelievably high level.
They look like they're built for the long haul. So,
and let's not act like we're not asking Coach Rule to do something here he's never done before either.
No, I know. I'm with you.
Like
I'm not going out like when I. This is gonna sound horrible, but this is how I look at it. Asking Coach Rule to win in 2024 is not going out of his recent character. It's going out of Nebraska's.
100%. Yeah.
So,
but we still want him to do things he's never done before in terms of winning a championship.
Yes.
That's what we're asking.
I'm not even there yet.
No,
though.
But that's what
I mean. Ultimately, sure.
Yeah. Well, but like you would take Sarkisian's progression at Texas at Nebraska.
Oh, 100%.
5-7 year one. Yeah. We've been there. We saw that one.
Yeah.
We would take 8-5 this year. It was 8-4 regular season and a loss in a bowl game. And Nebraska would take that. 12-2 college football playoff.
Yeah.
Nebraska would take that a million days out of a million.
That's actually, if you were writing the script,
that's how it would look.
That's exactly how you would write
100%. If I'm writing the script,
see Jason's tweet. It's kind of funny.
What did he say?
He's predicting Nebraska to go 9-3, and yes.
I did see that.
He realizes that
we cannot handle that.
Fan base will lose their mind.
9-3 is definitely the peak of Nebraska being able to keep a lid on it at all.
Yeah.
If Nebraska gets to double-digit wins this year, like
I have
God help us all.
I have not even allowed myself to go there.
I mean,
I'm struggling to get to 9.
I'm. Yeah. We'll make our predictions on Friday, but like it's on the table. It is on the table. 10 is. It is. It's out there. Like I don't have to do too many mental gymnastics to get them to 10. I really don't.
Fudge, I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
More mental gymnastics to get Nebraska to 10 or more mental gymnastics.
Start with something simple like saying this. Nebraska's going to double their win total
That's
from
a lot.
year ago.
That's a lot.
Seems aggressive.
It is. But in a vacuum, you look at this roster and this season, and you go, it's there. Can they get there? I have no idea. I really don't. But it's not crazy.
Ludicrous, no.
Do you have to?
But if if to even remotely have a shot at it, I have to concede that they'll do something that I don't think that they'll do.
What's that?
Go 7-0.
Yeah, they got to go 7-0 to start.
I can't get past that.
That's fine. That's fair. You're right.
For me, that's a mental gymnastics.
That's fair. But
it's not like
if you take
it's not like pommel horse. It'd be probably more like
a little floor routine.
Yeah. Or the one where I could use like the creative ribbons.
Oh, so the rhythmic gymnastics?
Yeah, I could do that.
You can do.
No. Sorry, stream people. It's over here. Listen.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out.
Oh. Yeah.
How does that go?
I don't know.
You look like Carlton out here.
No. Yeah, I'd love it.
I just mean when I look at
it just seems highly unlikely.
That's fair. And again, we're asking Nebraska to do, and I don't think they're going to go 10-2. Just I don't. I also don't think it's implausible.
I can't even get past the rhythmic thing.
Rhythmic.
I do think that's a lot of gymnastics.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on there. But here's the thing: you say that you don't think they can go 7-0, which is fine. But when you break it down game by game, you could see them winning each of those games.
I could.
So that's the hard part, right?
I'm pitting against that. It hasn't been done since
you have
16.
to do it 7 times in a row.
Yeah.
But if you take them that's the hard part, right? Because I can take them individually and be like, oh yeah, they can win that game. They can win that game. You do that 7 times in a row.
1,000% I could see it.
But getting it actually do it.
Yep, every last one of them.
That's the difference.
So
it's the accumulation.
Yeah, that's the first pommel horse routine in my head.
Yeah. How does this team handle success?
They almost never do it.
Or what are we doing on the uneven bars there? What are we doing?
Yeah,
we're doing some rings.
Ruining our privates.
A little hard on the shoulders.
I don't know
with the
how
rings.
people get on those rings.
I know.
Yeah, hard pass.
So more likely, Quinn Ewers is that guy and returns Texas to the playoff, or Nebraska goes 10-2. Since we're betting on things this segment. Which would you bet on first?
Ewers being that guy.
I think it's Texas, yeah.
Ewers being that guy.
I think so.
Sounds weird to say out loud, though, because
it is, because you don't feel great about it.
I watch him during stretches, and I'm like,
not that good sometimes.
Yuck.
Yeah.
But they can hand the ball off. But what are they down to? Probably two legit guys in the backfield.
Yeah, they got banged up in fall camp in the running back room.
But they should be able to get some stops, though.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, I wonder how Michigan's gonna score.
Yeah, they might look a lot like Iowa.
No, on Texas.
That's what I mean. They might look a lot like Iowa.
Yeah, I thought you meant over the long haul. Like Texas defensively.
I mean, long haul, they might look a lot like Iowa too this year. But
I'm telling you, I'm enamored with in the preseason, and so I've been watching Murphy. Boy, they gonna miss that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he was incredible. Ooh-wee. Incredible.
If you had to, I don't know why we're talking so much Texas here, but every time we talk about Quinn Ewers, I think about Arch Manning. Right?
Yeah, I'm over that though.
No, but
because so full disclosure, I never liked Arch. I never loved the tape. I didn't like anything about Arch.
So that's kind of where my question's going though. Is Quinn Ewers an indictment on Arch Manning, or we just don't know yet?
I haven't seen. I mean, Arch did look good in the spring game.
He did. Yeah,
that thing's in my library. I was like, ooh.
He looked better in the spring game than he ever had.
But then I also have to realize that
it's a spring game. Yeah.
Right. So that was like, yeah.
But Dylan Rowe looked good in the spring game too, and that counts.
He was okay.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's capable.
He's capable of more than that.
Yeah, they didn't even.
No.
Nah. He's way better than that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good news.
I mean, not to set the expectation level, but
No, but it's good he's developing. I mean, whatever that expectation level is, it's good he's getting better. Like, that's a positive.
Again, just start with being well received by your teammates. And that's a good place to start.
Especially in the quarterback room.
And I bet they like that room. That's my segment.
You heard it here first. DB all in on Quinn Ewers. That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory.
Knock it off, all right?
We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're brought to you by our friends at EP Foundation Repair. EP Foundation Repair specializes in exactly that. Foundation repair, basement waterproofing, crawl spaces, whatever you need to ensure the structural integrity of your home or business. They've got you covered. Over 25 years of experience, and they're local. Based in Lincoln, they're deeply familiar with soil conditions in Nebraska, which helps them provide great solutions. Give them a call, 402-588-5174. That's EP Foundation Repair. All right, DB, let's get into the volleyball documentary a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
We had a chance to see a little bit early. Everybody else saw it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Sam, when he talked to us, I think it was last week, was really accurate in saying not what he expected. And I really didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect that.
Right.
I really didn't.
I didn't either.
I was pretty taken aback by it, honestly.
So not that Shane was listening, or even you for that matter, but
I listen sometimes.
You kind of knew what I got at when I was asking, hey, listen, right? Creative, a couple left brain folks, you start out with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know when you wanted to go a certain direction?
Yeah.
Right? And I asked that just so I could get some backstory on. I just don't think that that's what they originally started out wanting to do.
With the Harper Murray stuff?
Yeah, because they didn't get there till after volleyball day.
They didn't. And I also wonder, so here's the part that I was trying to figure out, right? Because it seemed like Harper Murray was going to be a focus of the documentary. But the turns that it took late, especially, whether it be with her mental health stuff after the championship match, whether it be with her off-the-court issues that happened after the season, like that stuff had to throw them a little bit off. But they had talked to her enough, and they'd obviously gone up there and visited her family and stuff like that, that she was obviously going to be a part of it.
Right.
But the direction,
I mean, she's freshman of the year.
Right, yeah. She's obviously this like prodigiously talented freshman. She had the really kind of, I guess, polarizing statement after the championship match, which that's one of the things that caught me off guard, because I knew what she said. I was totally unaware of the backlash.
Shane, do you remember cheering for Vada Murray?
No. I do remember your question, though, from the interview last week. The interview that we had was great.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked it out, go back and check it out.
Because I felt like that storyline snuck up on them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so enthralling that they were like,
we have to go.
We got to go with it.
Yeah.
And what I just try so hard not to be a pound of flesh guy. Like, I'd like to move on, just own it. But I did finish watching that, and I brought it back with me the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't about my Coach Cook question to you, but one of the things that I was pretty mad at is I wanted to go back and get all the folks that were so judgmental of Harper Murray
in the moment.
Yeah.
And
then the repeat offense, right? It was
okay. So you're talking about the off-court stuff, not the comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't think that was anything at all. That was the crazy part.
So even now that I've had a chance to go back and listen to it again, it's still.
I thought it was totally innocuous.
She answered the question like her personality.
Yeah.
She's going to say what you want her to you hear and move on, even though she doesn't really. That may not be her true feelings. She just wants it over with. Like, she's like, oh, yeah, fine. We're going to win 3 in a row next year. Like, she said it like, okay, whatever. I didn't feel like she gave it a ton of thought holder to it. And I don't know, right? Maybe in that situation, you're probably a little more thoughtful. But I've always said this. I defended Cam after the Super Bowl. I'm big into. I understand people get mean, she wasn't getting paid to be in the moment, and Cam is paid to answer those questions. But sometimes,
but you're humans, and it's emotional,
right? And I always say that,
especially after a loss.
I always say that, like
I wouldn't expect her to react any other way in that moment than think, I'm so mad right now, I'm never going to let us lose again.
Yeah,
like that's how I mean, I totally understood that. But you were talking about kind of the pound of flesh on the off the court stuff.
Yeah, I'm just like, you guys don't understand. Like, some of these people, like, I know, like, historically, and I would consider myself extremely mentally tough. Okay. But I know there's a couple months out of the year, almost every year,
they're going to be tough for you.
Or it's a little bit more of a crapshoot than not. Right? July's not good. September's not good.
Yeah.
October's not good. Right? So I have to do things,
like dial it in
historically to not let it get away from me, right? So I
provide yourself some extra structure.
So I empathize with people in that situation, especially when it has to do with loss.
Yeah,
like her mom hit the nail on the head, and she doesn't know how it's going down.
Yeah,
real time, right? Because they're getting that footage earlier, where she described Harper's reaction to the news of Veda or her dad saying, "Hey, you know what? Like,
not gonna make it.
About to be it."
Yeah.
But and all the rest of the other kids, like that right there, let me know, like, oof, if she's accurate, and this isn't revisionist history, and I have every reason to believe that she's telling it how she remembers it. It was going to be tough going forward, because I think I got the sense that, so it wasn't about whatever I did in school.
Yeah, it's not because I got a detention or because
yeah. And if she's being serious, now I'm not, I'm not Rorschach or anything.
Yeah,
but like,
not to be armchair psychologist, but
that let me know that there's this sense of responsibility to the connection that she was carrying with her,
and probably still does. Like in all likelihood, that wasn't that long ago for her.
No, I know.
We see her now as an adult, right?
I know. Yeah.
That wasn't that. What was she? 13, 12, 13, somewhere in there. It's like 5 years ago.
Listen,
that's not that long ago for her.
Yeah, my dad was 2017, and I had a chance to get like my feelings.
Yeah, you got a little time. Yeah.
And it's still tough.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. I'm not mad at those people for. I even like you'd see it on like well, why would she pay for X amount and only pay? I'm like, clearly, that's somebody that in the moment is needing something other than actually just taking something.
Yeah. We're also not talking about, in that situation, clearly not talking about somebody making logical decisions.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about somebody who is like, you can't put a logical filter on somebody who's emotionally compromised in that state. That we try and do that all the time. Yeah. And I'm guilty of it too. So I'm not condemning.
Sometimes I'll always say you can't rationalize with irrational people.
Right. And in that moment, she may not always be an irrational person, but she's acting irrationally at that point in her life, right? Because she's emotionally compromised, because she's dealing with mental health issues and things like that, where we can't sit there and be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, yeah, none of it makes sense. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. We didn't understand Jordan Larson.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that she's back, we're going to go back. We're going to go back and get
her. Some people don't understand that.
Yeah.
When you operate at that high of a level and experience loss that early, like you're forced to compartmentalize some things.
Yes. You can't operate like a normal human being.
Because who's giving you the manual?
No one. That manual doesn't exist. And even if it did, it's different for everybody, right? Like every person has a different relationship with the people they lose, even if it's a father-to-father relationship, right? Yeah. Like you losing your father late in life is way different than her losing her father in her formative teenage years or pre-teenage years, right? Yeah. Like even though you experience the same loss, that's a very different situation. It just is.
Yeah.
And so even if you had a manual, it wouldn't do any good, right? Like that'd be like a manual to using the internet. It's like, yeah, but there's a billion different web pages. Like that doesn't help me that much.
But going back through that, whether we wanted we want another 90 minutes, right? But that's why they call it an E60.
Yeah.
You want like more. One of the things that I left after watching it again yesterday, because I'd already seen it before, it's like when you get a healthy Lindsey Krause back and stuff like that, you almost feel like you're getting a new player.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, these guys could be really good this year.
They could be stacked. Yeah.
Like that was kind of the thing.
Could be really good.
And the other thing is knowing Coach Cook kind of the way that I do, it is interesting to see the emotional side of being a coach that has such control over the standard being the standard. Like to see him tug emotionally, and I know he went through some things with Lowe, and
because he kind of comes off a little gruff in general.
Yeah.
But
you mean like
in general,
right?
But
just
not
like
in that moment. Not in that moment.
So
that's why it was interesting to see.
That was interesting for me to see.
Yeah. Because I do
He's
think
not joking about cowboys and hats and like horses.
But we saw it a little bit last year. I think it was after volleyball day where he breaks down a little bit.
Yeah. And I remember, and I was like, whoa.
That's unusual we thought that was unusual for him. We didn't get to see that side of him very often. I'm glad we did.
He's had so many of those that aren't always made public, right? Like what the Rolfson twins went through, or coaching Reitzma through things, or
that's why when you ask
losing staff with like Christy, there's just a lot of things. Jordan Larson, there's just things that and you're a male in a female sport. So is your natural inkling to go paternal?
Yeah, to be like a nurturer.
That would be hard in the position as a coach,
especially while you're trying to keep the standard, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that's what makes him special. Maybe that's what makes him.
Well, he does have one of the
best to ever do it.
He does have range.
Yeah.
Right. Like as a person on the spectrum of what things that his range is incredible.
Yeah, and we were lucky to get to see a little bit more of a glimpse of that, not only last year but through the documentary as well. So that was a great glimpse into that, and I hope everybody got a chance to see it. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back tomorrow here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.